The text message from my son was only 9 words long, but it destroyed 68 years of love in a single moment. I read it 3 times, hoping the words would change. They didn't. Instead, they sat there on my screen like a quiet sentence passed down by a judge. Dad, I think it's better if you don't come to the wedding. No call. No explanation. Just a message telling me I wasn't welcome at the most important day of my own son's life. For a long time, I didn't move. Because when the child you raised with your own hands suddenly decides you don't belong anymore, something inside you goes very still. But what my son didn't know was this. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't even reply. Instead, I disappeared. And by the time he realized what he had done, his entire wedding was already falling apart. Welcome to my YouTube channel Whisper Stories, where silence speaks. My name is Detan, and I am 68 years old. At 68, a man believes he has already learned how disappointment feels. You think you understand silence. You think you understand the quiet ways people drift apart over time. But nothing prepares you for the moment when your own child decides that your presence is no longer welcome in his life. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I remember because the sun was shining through the kitchen window, lighting the dust floating in the air like tiny stars. I was sitting at the table with a cup of black coffee and a piece of toast I hadn't touched. My phone buzzed. When you reach my age, messages are usually simple things: doctor appointments, bank alerts, sometimes a neighbor asking if I could feed their cat. But that morning, the message was from my son. My only son. Ethan. I smiled when I saw his name. I hadn't heard from him in days, and I assumed it was about the wedding he'd been planning. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened the text. What I read next felt like someone quietly removing the floor beneath my feet. Dad, I think it's better if you don't come to the wedding. Please respect our decision. That was it. No explanation. No phone call. Just a sentence. I stared at the screen for a long time, waiting for another message to appear. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he would say, "Just kidding, Dad." But the phone stayed silent. And in that silence, something inside me cracked. I raised Ethan by myself. His mother left when he was 8 years old. She didn't hate us, life just pulled her somewhere else. At least that's what I told Ethan when he asked why she stopped coming home. The truth was simpler. Some people aren't built to stay. But I stayed. I worked 2 jobs when he was young. I missed sleep, skipped vacations, and sold my old motorcycle to pay for his school trip when he was 14. When he got his first broken heart at 16, he cried on my shoulder. When he graduated college, I cried in the audience. When he called me 3 months ago to say he was getting married, I felt proud in a way only fathers understand. He told me her name was Clara. "She's amazing, Dad," he said. And I believed him. I was happy for him. I really was. So reading that message felt like discovering the last chapter of a book had been ripped out. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat there until the coffee turned cold. An hour later, my neighbor Mrs. Patel knocked on the door. She's a sweet woman who checks on me sometimes. "Good morning, Detan," she said, smiling. "You look pale." I tried to smile back. "Just didn't sleep well." She glanced at the phone still sitting on the table. "Everything okay with Ethan?" I hesitated. Then I lied. "Yes, he's busy with wedding things." She nodded, satisfied, and left. But the lie tasted bitter. That afternoon, I walked through my house. It's a small place, nothing fancy, but every room held memories of Ethan growing up. The mark on the wall where he practiced throwing baseballs. The old bookshelf where he kept his comic books. The kitchen table where we celebrated his birthdays. And suddenly the house felt too quiet. Too full of ghosts. I picked up my phone again and read the message one more time. "Please respect our decision." Decision? So it wasn't just Ethan. It was both of them. Clara too. Maybe they thought I would embarrass them. Maybe they thought I didn't belong among their younger friends. Maybe I had become something inconvenient. An old reminder of a life they had moved beyond. The thought hurt more than I expected. So I did something strange. I opened my laptop and searched for flights. 3 days later, I was on a plane. Destination, Santorini, Greece. I had never taken a real vacation before. There was always work, bills, responsibilities. But suddenly, none of that mattered. If my son didn't want me at the most important day of his life, then maybe it was time I started living my own. I didn't tell Ethan. I didn't tell anyone. I just left. Santorini looked like a dream. White houses clinging to cliffs. Blue water stretching endlessly under the sun. People laughing in cafes. Couples taking photos at sunset. I rented a small room overlooking the sea. The first night, I sat on the balcony watching the sky turn orange and purple. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Maybe distance was what I needed. Maybe time would heal things. Maybe Ethan would eventually call. But back home, something unexpected happened. The wedding preparations began to fall apart. I didn't know this at the time. But later, Ethan told me everything. It started with a simple question. Clara's mother asked, "Where is Ethan's father sitting at the ceremony?" Ethan hesitated. "He's not coming." The room went quiet. "Why not?" she asked. Ethan shrugged. "It's complicated." But people don't like vague answers. Especially when it comes to family. Soon whispers began. Did they fight? Did something happen? Is the father sick? Clara tried to smooth things over. But the more they tried to hide it, the stranger it looked. Because weddings are supposed to bring families together, not erase them. Then came the rehearsal dinner. Someone asked Ethan directly, "Where's your dad?" And that's when he realized something. He didn't have a good answer. Because the truth was embarrassing. He had excluded the man who raised him. For no real reason. Just because Clara thought it might be simpler. And suddenly, the decision didn't feel simple anymore. Back in Santorini, I was eating dinner at a small seaside restaurant when my phone rang. Ethan. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But I answered. Hello. His voice sounded different. Tired. Dad, where are you? I smiled slightly. On vacation. There was silence. Vacation, he repeated. Yes, Greece. Another pause. Dad, we need to talk. He told me everything. The questions, the whispers, the tension, and finally the truth. Clara thought it would be less awkward if you weren't there, he admitted quietly. The words strung. But now, everyone keeps asking about you. I looked out at the ocean. The waves rolled against the rocks, steady and patient. And what do you think? I asked. Another long silence. Then I heard something I hadn't heard in years. My son's voice cracking. I think I made a mistake. He apologized. Not quickly. Not casually. But sincerely. Dad, I don't know why I let it happen. You've always been there for me. My throat tightened. I never wanted to hurt you. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said softly, Ethan, being a father means loving someone even when they forget how to love you back. He began crying. And that sound broke my heart more than the text message ever did. A week later, I returned home. Ethan was waiting at the airport. When I saw him standing there, he looked like the same little boy who once waited for me outside his school with a backpack bigger than his shoulders. He walked toward me slowly. "I'm sorry, Dad." I nodded. "I know." He hugged me tightly. And just like that, something broken began to heal. The wedding was delayed by 2 weeks. Not cancelled. Just postponed. Clara apologized too. She admitted she had misunderstood what family truly meant. And on the day of the wedding, I sat in the front row. Right where a father belongs. When Ethan saw me there, he smiled in a way that reminded me of every birthday, every graduation, every proud moment we had shared. And when the ceremony ended, he hugged me again. "Thank you for coming, Dad." I chuckled. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Now, when I look back on that strange chapter of my life, I realize something important. Sometimes people forget the value of love when it has always been there. They assume it will wait forever. But love, like anything else, needs respect. Needs gratitude. Needs presence. Moral of the story: family is not just about blood. It's about remembering the hands that lifted you when you couldn't stand on your own. Because one day, those hands may quietly walk away. And by the time you realize their worth, it might already be too late.